Welcome to the TFO podcast, where guests get to give their thoughts, feelings, and opinions on a variety of subjects. This podcast is hosted by your very own Stacy Cook, and as always, sponsored by Fool's Guide Life Coaching. Follow me on all social media platforms. So give it up for our guest today. Yeah. Let's start with the introductions.
Becky, I'm a nurse for about 14 years.
Okay.
Married, 3 kids, 3 grandbabies.
Wow, okay.
And a whole lot of fur babies.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Okay, that's a good introduction.
Okay.
A lot of people work hard, go to work every day, put their hours in, but once they get off work, they really don't have anything to be passionate about. So one of the things I know you're passionate about is activism, so you want to talk a little bit about that? Tell me the things that you support.
Black Lives Matter.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to support women's rights to the best that I can.
Yeah.
I've organized a march myself.
Okay.
I've been active in a couple of marches. Abortion rights is part of that, women's rights, and then just a women's march in Washington.
Okay.
So,
Tell me about going to the march. Like, I know you guys went to the one in Washington, D.C. How did that go? And
it was actually amazing that we're still in this position with women, because there was a lot of, not just women, there were men supportive of women, which is nice to see. So, but it's getting the right people who have the power to also be supportive. That's the problem.
yeah, so who's the powerful women? Like, when you think about who can actually make change in the U.S., who would that be?
I think any woman can actually make change if you try.
Right.
But you gotta get active. You can't just sit around and complain about it.
Yeah. What would be some of the things that regular person, whether it be man or woman, if they wanted to support women's rights, what would they do?
I mean, it's just as simple as calling it out when you see it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the misogyny and just the imbalance, the inequality.
Mm-hmm.
Just call it out when it's there.
Yeah.
That's simple.
What is the thing that you see the most, where you see the biggest discrepancy between men and women, like on a daily basis?
Really, just right now, I think men trying to tell us what to do with our own bodies.
Okay. I thought you were just going to say men trying to tell you what to do, period.
Well, period is actually true as well,
Yeah.
but particularly one of the biggest things right now is women, our bodies and what we're going to do with them. And the abortion rights is the forefront of what's going on, a particular subject right now.
Or what amount do men's input have on what a woman would do with her body? Do they have no input? Do they have some input? Or is it the woman's choice, really?
Woman's choice. They should have 0 input.
Okay. I'm not disputing it. I'm just asking for a number.
I'm just saying. We're not telling you what to do.
Yeah. Who has it harder? Like, just overall. Do you think men have it harder or women have it harder overall?
I think it could be equal, just depending on what we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I definitely feel like men struggle in a whole lot of different ways.
Yeah.
I think women's is more at the forefront, I guess, because we talk about it more.
We do.
Yeah. So, yeah.
You and I kind of talked a little bit off camera but the U.S. is a big place. How do you really make change at a larger level, more than just this? Each one person can call it out. There's got to be other things. Is it law? Is it, what do you have to do?
It's law. It's protecting the laws. It's getting people involved, getting women into some of these offices, even at a local level.
Mm-hmm.
You have to start locally to get it to the bigger stage. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you think that they have an equal chance to win if they run? Do you think that, or is it, sometimes you look at politics and, when you think about the president or somebody who's going to play the president on TV, you already have a kind of a picture in your mind who that person is.
Right.
Usually a man, right? So how do you change the perception of what somebody that is making decisions and is in power? How do we change that perception of what that person looks like?
I really don't know. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah.
Because we are still acting like women are not qualified to be in these. But if you really look at what an average woman might do, they could probably manage things a hell of a lot better than most men.
What? Wait a minute. I would say equally as well.
No,
Equally
really,
as
we're
well.
managing a household typically. We're the primary caretakers of children. We are working. We are doing all these things. And sometimes you can't get a man to even multitask 3 things. So I'm just saying.
As a man, I take offense to all of that. I say BS to all that. I do agree with some of those
But
things.
we can't get people out of the mindset that women are just supposed to still be at home.
You know, if you think about it as a young person, as a young man and as a young woman, as a man, I remember building trades class. Hey, this is what I have to do. They're going to teach you how to weld, or they're going to teach you how to, use woodworking tools, or build a house or something.
Right.
Those were the classes that I took in high school. But they also had like home ec. Oh, you learn how to sew, and you learn how to cook, and you learn how to do that. I was lucky enough to take them both, but mostly men in the building trades class and mostly women in home ec. Like those classes were made for those groups.
Right.
How do we change that?
And exactly that. We need to change that from the start. But I don't know how I don't think you're ever going to change. You're always going to have it. There's going to be always people that just think that this is a man's role, this is a woman's role, that's it. I don't know if that's ever going to fully change. So, but for those who want the change, we have to start when they're young. We have to make sure they understand that, as a girl, you can play with trucks if you want to, like whatever.
Right.
Just, it doesn't have to be male, female roles assigned.
Disney on Ice is for the girls, right? I mean, if you go there, boys go, but those things are set up for girls, right? And then men do something else, right? I mean, it just seems to be not a lot of change in the way that we bring up our young people.
It's just fears. That's all it is. People are afraid. Oh, my son, if I take him to Disney, oh my God, he's gonna be gay. Oh boy. I mean.
It's gonna take more than that. It's gonna take more than a trip to Disney.
But that's the mindset.
Yeah. With equal rights, let's talk about things like women and men's sports. So that has become a thing, right? You see a man in a woman's sport. Like I watched an MMA fight where, obvious to me, this person was transgender, but obviously a man doing MMA fighting with women, and it did not go well for the women. And what do you think about? If we're talking about equal, what's the cutoff? Where is there times and places where it really is for men? Is that something like that? Just full on strength. This person is stronger, right? Like obviously. Or faster.
I don't think there is a cutoff because if that woman is willing to take that into the ring with a man who genetically, I do know, because I am a medical professional, I know there's a genetic difference in muscle tone and all those things between male and female. So, but at the end of the day, if you're a woman in MMA and you want to take that on, that's your choice.
Yeah.
Whether you win or lose, doesn't matter.
It was hard to watch as a man. I grew up, men don't hit women.
Right.
Watching this man hit these women, it was hard to watch for me.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know how you.
And I get that too.
That, right?
But in a sport where you are choosing to participate in that sport and go against a male, that is your choice as a woman.
Yeah.
I mean.
All right, so as we talk about women's rights, let's shift gears just slightly because you are a nurse. You worked in hospitals, worked all multiple different places. Are you starting to see more male nurses and female doctors? Are you starting to see that shift at all?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a fair share of female doctors that I've seen anyway. a lot of nurse practitioners, particularly, maybe not all the way to doctorate, but, and nurses, yeah, I would say so. There's a lot more males. I mean, they're a little more choosy sometimes on what area they're working in.
Okay. Yeah.
It seems. I mean, you don't have a lot of labor and delivery male nurses.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, but.
Entry level nurse makes $20-ish an hour today. The entry level manufacturing person makes $20 an hour, with women being more apt to be caregiving, right? To be more empathetic, to sympathetic, whatever you pick, whatever, nurturing, all those words, all that. They tend to lean more towards something like a career in nursing, more so than they would see themselves doing manufacturing. So, what can we do to help those folks see that they can do some of these other things?
Again, I think it just goes back to, I mean, I wasn't raised that way, but along the line, I figured out that I don't have to just be a mom at home taking care of my husband's needs. Like, I don't need to do that. But if you look at the traditional roles, even of my husband's family, that's the traditional roles that they had. That was an expectation. So he came from that kind of family. My family, kind of the same, at least initially when we were young. And so I did also have those ideals at first where, like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is what I'm expected to do as a girl.
Yeah.
Even in the workforce, the expectations of those women is still a problem. It's, you know, when your child's sick, 2 people working, it's always the woman who has to miss work. So you're still asking the woman to jeopardize her career, potentially, to be at home with kids. Right. So this is still a problem. So there are some companies moving towards men having that, you know, paid leave, family leave, stuff like that too, which I think is good, because then it kind of takes the burden off of the man having to still feel like the breadwinner, but I can't miss work because because still, mostly, the men are still making the higher wages, let's face it.
Yeah, right now I would agree with that. I would agree
in
with
general.
That. There are a lot of women that wouldn't send their husbands home to watch the kids.
That is also facts.
Yeah, this isn't about anything more than them to say no. I actually want our kids to survive this flu, right? So I'm going home.
I would also agree with that. In general, we are a little better at it. I guess I don't even know what else
That's
to say.
Fact. It really is. I mean, when you really look at it, there are things today that women just are better at than men, and men are better at than women. I think some people aren't willing to admit some of those things. It's not bad, it's just facts. I mean, it is what it is. That's today. Traditionally, that's how it is. Now, moving forward, that may change. It may change that the man is in the house watching the kids while the woman's out changing the wheel bearings of the car. It could happen at some point. But like traditionally, that's not how it works today. I mean, from a hobby standpoint and the things that men usually do in their spare time, they're in the garage tinkering around with something that's mechanical or whatever. That just seems to be the way it is.
But all I'm asking is to take your daughter out there instead of just your son. You know?
Yeah.
Like, that's where we start.
I think that, and I don't think as a man that even is on the radar at this point. Men really don't think that way.
It's really a mindset, and it needs to change.
So, who can deliver the message? I mean, I don't know where that message comes from. I mean, I know that you guys went to the march, but like, what action? Like, okay, so we went, we marched, we talked about it, we cheered about it, we had signs, but the action that comes from that is hard for somebody like me to see what steps are going to take going forward that are going to make that change. So how do we do that?
Like I said, I think we've made progress in some of the law changes, but there's a long way to go. I mean, all the way back to like Violence Against Women Act and just different things like that, and just changing the perspective of how you look at women and not just as a sexualized thing, or just the whole perspective of women has to change.
Right.
And then until that happens, which I think it'll happen several generations from now, because I think it's just some of the older generations are not as willing to change their mindset. So it's going to be a change over generations, but right now, just we have to have laws and we have to fight for them. I mean, we have to get out and march, and we have to talk, and we have to legislate if you're one that is involved in politics.
Right. Even if the law is in place,
There's a way to get around.
there's people that are skirting the law, and the people that are doing the auditing are kind of in on it as well, right? They're like, yep, that sounds good to me, right? It's got to be a little.
There's always going to be a way to get around it. So all in all, I don't know that we're ever going to be 100% ever. Not in my lifetime.
Yeah.
For future, hopefully.
It's an inclusion and diversity thing that needs to happen, not because they're women, but people have different ideas, right? So whatever your niche is, you bring that to a decision.
Right.
You want to have a diverse group of ideas in there and thought processes, and the only way to do that is have diverse people in the room, and they have to work there.
But it's also like, I want diversity, but what am I going to do to get it? So as an employer, what are you going to do to get that? So are you going to help these women further their education?
Right.
Are you going to put forth the effort to train them? Are you going to pay them what they're worth?
Yeah. Promote them at the same rate
that you are a man.
Yeah, for sure. So to your point, long way to go. And it's a long way to go, and it has a lot to do with each. But so women have to do something to further this, right? The employers have to do something to further this. The government has to. It's not just even one group. If one group goes all the way in and the other ones don't move, nothing happens, right?